In a packed Supreme Court, Chief Justice John Roberts glares at Elon Musk, his laughter echoing. Musk, defiant, stands accused of market manipulation. What he does next will shock the nation and spark fierce debate. The courtroom buzzed with tension, the air thick with anticipation. Reporters scribbled furiously, their pens scratching like a chorus of cicadas. On one side stood Elon Musk, the billionaire trailblazer whose every move seemed to defy gravity, his sharp eyes scanning the room. Across from him, Chief Justice John Roberts, the stoic arbiter of the nation's highest court, leaned forward, his face a mask of skepticism. The stakes couldn't be higher. Musk was here because of a series of tweets in 2024, where he'd hinted at taking Tesla private again, sending stock markets into a frenzy. The Securities and Exchange Commission, bruised from past battles with Musk, had pounced, accusing him of market manipulation and dragging him before the Supreme Court to answer for alleged violations of securities law. The case had ballooned into a spectacle, a clash not just of law but of power, wealth, and ideology. Roberts, known for his measured demeanor, had a personal stake in reining in Musk. The billionaire's cavalier attitude toward regulations, his public mockery of government oversight, and his unchecked influence over markets had long irked the Chief Justice. Roberts saw Musk as a symbol of a new breed of tycoon, one who operated as if the law were optional. The courtroom was his battleground to assert that no one, not even a man with Musk's wealth and reach, was above the Constitution. As the session began, Roberts wasted no time. "Mr. Musk," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs, "you seem to believe your tweets are mere musings, not market-moving forces. Do you understand the chaos you've caused?" The room fell silent. Musk's lips twitched, but he didn't respond. Not yet. The prosecution laid out their case with surgical precision. They presented a timeline of Musk's tweets, each one a spark that ignited billions in market swings. One post, sent at 2 a.m., read, "Tesla going private at $500 share, funding secured." Another, hours later, mused, "Maybe I'll buy the whole market, LOL." The SEC argued these weren't jokes, but deliberate attempts to manipulate stock prices, costing investors millions while Tesla's valuation soared. They showed emails, leaked from a whistleblower, where Musk allegedly bragged to confidants about playing the market like a fiddle. The evidence was damning, and the gallery gasped as each exhibit flashed on the screen. Roberts, his eyes, narrowing, seemed to relish the moment. "This is not a game, Mr. Musk," he said, his tone icy. "Your words have consequences." Musk's legal team, a cadre of high-priced attorneys, countered with vigor. They argued the tweets were protected speech, expressions of a visionary's thoughts, not calculated schemes. "My client is a disruptor," lead counsel Sarah Bennett declared, "not a criminal. He's being targeted for his boldness, for challenging a system that fears innovation." The argument resonated with some in the gallery, where Musk's supporters whispered their approval. But Roberts wasn't swayed. He leaned back, a rare smirk crossing his face. "Boldness, Ms. Bennett, does not excuse recklessness," he said, his words dripping with disdain. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, and Musk's jaw tightened. For the first time he looked rattled. As the day wore on, the confrontation grew personal. Roberts pressed Musk directly, demanding he explain his disregard for regulatory warnings. Musk, now standing, fired back. "I'm building the future," he said, his voice steady but edged with defiance. "The SEC's rules are relics, slowing down progress." The gallery buzzed, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Roberts' laughter, sharp and unexpected, cut through the noise. "The future, Mr. Musk, must still answer to the law," he said, his eyes locked on the billionaire. The exchange was electric, a standoff between two titans. Musk's face flushed, but he held his ground, his next move uncertain. The courtroom held its breath, waiting for the spark that would ignite. the next phase of this legal inferno. The courtroom's air crackled as Chief Justice John Roberts' words hung like a guillotine. Elon Musk, still standing, met Roberts' gaze, his defiance a live wire. The gallery's murmurs swelled, a tide of awe and unease. Musk's retort about building the future had struck a nerve, but Roberts' sharp laughter had sliced through it, framing the billionaire as a reckless gambler. Now, the Chief Justice leaned forward, his voice low but piercing. "You speak of progress, Mr. Musk, but progress built on chaos is no progress at all. Do you deny the harm your actions have caused?" The question was a trap, and every eye in the room turned to Musk, waiting for his response. Musk's attorney, Sarah Bennett, shot to her feet, sensing the moment's weight. "Objection, Your Honor. The question assumes guilt, not yet proven." Roberts' eyes flicked to her, unimpressed. "Overruled," he said curtly. "Mr. Musk will answer." The gallery held its breath. Musk, his hands clenched at his sides, took a measured breath. "Harm?" he said, his voice steady but laced, with contempt. "The harm is in a system that punishes visionaries while protecting dinosaurs. My tweets didn't hurt investors. They exposed a market rigged by fear and greed." The room erupted, supporters cheering, critics gasping. Roberts banged his gavel, silencing the chaos, but his smirk betrayed a flicker of amusement. "A rigged market, you say?" he pressed. "Enlighten us, Mr. Musk. Who rigs it if not men like you?" The prosecution seized the moment, their lead attorney, Michael Vargas, stepping forward with a stack of documents. "Your Honors, we present trading data showing how Mr. Musk's tweets triggered algorithmic trading spikes, wiping out small investors while hedge funds profited." Vargas projected a chart, lines jagged as a heartbeat, showing Tesla's stock soaring and crashing within hours of Musk's posts. "This isn't vision," Vargas said, his voice rising. "This is manipulation, plain and simple." The gallery murmured, some nodding, others glaring at Musk. Roberts, his expression unreadable, studied the chart. "Ms. Bennett," he said, turning to Musk's counsel, "how does your client justify this carnage?" Bennett, unflinched, countered with a fiery defense. "These spikes prove nothing but the market's volatility, which predates my client's tweets. Mr. Musk is a scapegoat for a system that rewards speculation over substance." She gestured to Musk, who stood resolute. "He's not the villain here. He's the truth-teller." The argument landed with force, and Musk's supporters in the gallery clapped, earning another gavel from Roberts. But the Chief Justice wasn't done. He turned to Musk, his tone cutting. "Truth-teller or not, your words move billions. Do you accept no responsibility for the consequences?" The question was a gauntlet, and Musk's silence spoke volumes. For a moment doubt flickered in his eyes, a crack in his armor. The tension escalated as Vargas called a witness, a retired teacher who'd lost her savings in the Tesla stock crash. Margaret Klein, frail but fierce, took the stand, her voice trembling with anger. "I trusted Mr. Musk," she said, glaring at him. "His tweets made it sound safe. I lost everything." The gallery fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Musk's face tightened, but he didn't look away. Roberts, seizing the moment, leaned in. "Mr. Musk, what say you to Ms. Klein's loss?" The question was a dagger, and Musk's response would define him. He opened his mouth, then paused, the room hanging on his next words. "I'm sorry for her loss," he said finally, his voice low. "But I didn't force anyone to buy or sell. The market isn't my puppet." The gallery exploded, some shouting in outrage, others in approval. Robert's eyes narrowed, his patience thinning. "Careful, Mr. Musk," he warned. "Your defiance borders on contempt." As the session adjourned for a recess, the courtroom buzzed with debate. Musk's words had polarized the room, casting him as both hero and villain. Roberts, retreating to his chambers, seemed more determined than ever to hold the billionaire accountable. But Musk, surrounded by his team, whispered something to Bennett, his eyes alight with a new strategy. Whatever he was planning, it promised to upend the case and challenge the very foundations of the court's authority. The recess ended, and the Supreme Courtroom pulsed with restless energy, like a storm about to break. Spectators shuffled back to their seats, their whispers a low hum of speculation. Elon Musk's cryptic exchange with his attorney, Sarah Bennett, had set tongues wagging. What was he planning? Across the room, Chief Justice John Roberts returned, his face a granite mask of resolve. The clash between Musk's unyielding defiance and Roberts' steely commitment to the law had turned the case into a cultural lightning rod, and the tension was palpable. As the gavel fell, signaling the session's resumption, all eyes locked on Musk, whose calm demeanor belied the fire in his gaze. Roberts wasted no time. "Mr. Musk," he said, his voice ablaze, "your apology to Ms. Klein rings hollow when you claim no responsibility. Do you believe your wealth grants you immunity from accountability?" The question was a direct challenge, and the gallery leaned forward, hungry for Musk's response. Bennett rose, but Musk waved her off, standing to face Roberts himself. "Wealth doesn't shield me," he said, his tone measured but sharp. "It amplifies my voice, sure, but I'm here, aren't I, facing your court. If anything, my wealth makes me a bigger target for a system that loves to clip wings." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Roberts' eyes flashed, but he held his composure. "A target, Mr. Musk? Or a man who believes he can rewrite the rules?" The prosecution, sensing blood, doubled down. Michael Vargas called a financial analyst, Dr. Emily Chen, to dissect the market chaos Musk's tweets had unleashed. Chen, poised and clinical, presented a damning report. "Mr. Musk's posts triggered automated trading algorithms," she testified, pointing to a graph of erratic stock movements. "These weren't random. They followed his exact wording, exploiting market psychology." The gallery stirred, and Roberts nodded slightly, his attention fixed. Vargas pressed further. "Dr. Chen, in your expert opinion, was this deliberate manipulation?" Chen didn't hesitate. "Yes. The patterns suggest intent to destabilize for profit." The accusation landed like a grenade, and Musk's supporters in the crowd hissed, while others nodded grimly. Bennett countered with a surprise witness of her own. Raj Patel, a former SEC insider turned whistleblower. Patel, wiry and intense, took the stand, his testimony a bombshell. "The SEC has targeted Mr. Musk for years," he said, his voice steady. "They cherry-pick his tweets to justify bloated fines, while ignoring bigger fish who rig markets daily." The gallery buzzed, and even Roberts raised an eyebrow. Bennett seized the moment. "Your Honors, this case isn't about justice. It's a vendetta against a man who dares to challenge the status quo." The argument was bold, painting Musk as a martyr, and it resonated with his base in the room. But Roberts wasn't swayed. "Mr. Patel," he said, leaning forward, "are you suggesting the SEC fabricated evidence?" Patel faltered, then recovered. "Not fabricated, exaggerated." Roberts' lips tightened, his skepticism clear. The confrontation escalated as Musk, emboldened, took the stand himself. "I'm not a saint," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I'm not a villain either. My tweets are me thinking out loud, not some master plan to rob anyone." The gallery hung on his words, some moved, others unconvinced. Roberts, unyielding, pressed him. "Thinking out loud, Mr. Musk, doesn't absolve you of the wreckage. Why should this court trust your intentions?" Musk leaned forward, his eyes locked on Roberts. "Because I've built things, cars, rockets, tunnels, that outlast any tweet. Judge me by my actions, not your assumptions." The room exploded, cheers clashing with boos. Roberts banged his gavel, but his face betrayed a flicker of frustration. Musk's raw charisma was shifting the narrative, and the Chief Justice knew it. As the session drew to a close, Musk's team hinted at a bold gambit, a motion to dismiss the case, arguing the SEC's regulations violated free speech. The move was audacious, threatening to unravel decades of legal precedent. Roberts, visibly irritated, adjourned the court, but the gallery buzzed with fevered debate. Outside, protesters clashed, some hailing Musk as a hero, others decrying his arrogance. The case was no longer just about tweets. It was a referendum on power itself, and Musk's next move promised to ignite an even fiercer storm. The Supreme Courtroom crackled with unrest as the next session began, the weight of Musk's audacious motion to dismiss hanging over the proceedings, like a thundercloud. Outside, the chants of protesters, some waving signs proclaiming "Free Elon," others demanding justice for all, filtered through the walls, amplifying the stakes. Inside the gallery was a sea of tense faces, their eyes darting between Elon Musk, who sat with a steely calm, and Chief Justice John Roberts, whose stern visage betrayed a simmering irritation. Musk's motion, arguing that the SEC's regulations infringed on his free speech, had escalated the case into a direct challenge to the legal system's authority. Roberts, determined to maintain order, struck his gavel sharply. "We will address the defendant's motion," he declared, his voice a low growl. "But let no one mistake this court for a stage." Sarah Bennett, Musk's lead attorney, rose, with a commanding presence. "Your Honors," she began, her tone resolute, "the SEC's attempt to police Mr. Musk's speech is not just overreach, it's unconstitutional. His tweets, however provocative, are protected under the First Amendment." She cited landmark cases, her argument a deft weave of precedent and passion. This case isn't about markets. It's about silencing a voice that dares to disrupt. The gallery murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads. Musk's supporters clapped, earning a sharp glance from Roberts. The Chief Justice turned to the prosecution. "Mr. Vargas, your response?" he asked, his tone daring them to match Bennett's fire. Michael Vargas, the SEC's lead, stepped forward, his expression grim. "Ms. Bennett's argument is a smokescreen," he said, his voice rising. "Mr. Musk's tweets aren't free speech. They're financial weapons, wielded with intent to manipulate." He presented new evidence, text messages between Musk and Tesla executives allegedly coordinating the timing of his tweets to maximize market impact. One message read, "Drop the bomb at midnight, let's see how Wall Street squirms." The gallery gasped, and even Musk's stoic facade flickered. Vargas pressed his advantage. "This isn't expression, it's orchestration. The First Amendment doesn't shield fraud." The accusation landed like a hammer, and Roberts' eyes narrowed, his attention fixed on Musk. Bennett countered fiercely, calling the texts out of context. "These are casual exchanges, not a conspiracy," she argued, producing affidavits from the same executives denying any scheme. But the damage was done. The gallery buzzed, and Roberts seized the moment to confront Musk directly. "Mr. Musk," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, "your motion claims your speech is untouchable. Yet these messages suggest calculation. How do you reconcile this?" Musk stood, his jaw tight. "I reconcile it by saying I'm human," he said, his voice raw. "I joke, I vent, I push boundaries, but I don't defraud. Those texts, they're banter, not blueprints." The room split, cheers clashing with jeers. Roberts' laughter, cold and brief, silenced them. "Banter, Mr. Musk, doesn't move billions," he said, his eyes boring into the billionaire. The tension spiked as Vargas called another witness, a hedge fund manager who'd profited massively from Musk's tweets. Ethan Carver, slick and unapologetic, admitted to using Musk's posts as trading signals. "He's a market force," Carver said, shrugging. "I just ride the wave." The testimony painted Musk as a puppeteer, and the gallery's mood darkened. Roberts, sensing the shift, pressed Carver. "Did Mr. Musk's actions seem deliberate to you?" Carver smirked. "Everything he does is deliberate." The room erupted and Musk's face flushed, his composure cracking. Bennett objected, but Roberts waved her off. "The witness has answered," he said, his tone final. The exchange was a blow, and Musk's team scrambled to regroup. As the session neared its end, Bennett hinted at a new tactic, a challenge to the SEC's jurisdiction, arguing that global markets transcended their authority. The move was a high-stakes gamble threatening to redefine regulatory power. Roberts adjourned the court, his face a mask of controlled fury. The gallery spilled out, debates raging, while online, the case trended worldwide. Musk, whispering to Bennett, seemed to be plotting his final play, one that could either cement his legend or bring the full weight of the law crashing down. The Supreme Courtroom was a pressure cooker as the final session dawned, the air thick with the weight of a verdict that could reshape markets and power. Elon Musk's challenge to the SEC's jurisdiction had lit a fuse, and the gallery buzzed, with fevered anticipation. Outside, protesters' chants clashed, their signs a kaleidoscope of "Musk must pay" and "Free speech forever." Inside, Chief Justice John Roberts took his seat, his face an unyielding mask, though his eyes burned with the resolve to see this case through. Musk, flanked by his legal team, exuded a quiet intensity, his final gambit ready. The world watched, knowing this was no longer just a trial, but a reckoning between wealth and law. Roberts struck his gavel, silencing the room. "Ms. Bennett," he said, his voice a low thunder, "your motion to dismiss on jurisdictional grounds is unprecedented. Proceed with care." Sarah Bennett rose, her posture defiant. "Your Honors, the SEC's authority is rooted in a bygone era of national markets. Mr. Musk operates globally, his companies intertwined with economies worldwide. Policing his speech under outdated U.S. regulations is not just unfair, it's unenforceable." She cited international trade agreements and digital market dynamics, her argument a bold strike at the SEC's core power. The gallery murmured, some in awe, others in disbelief. Roberts leaned forward, his skepticism palpable. "You propose this court cede oversight to chaos, Ms. Bennett?" he asked, his tone sharp. Michael Vargas, the SEC's lead, countered with ferocity. "This is not about borders, it's about accountability," he declared, his voice rising. "Mr. Musk's tweets, sent from American soil, disrupted American markets. He cannot hide behind globalization." He presented a final piece of evidence, a recorded call where Musk allegedly boasted about outsmarting regulators. The tape, grainy but clear, played Musk's voice. "They'll never pin me down. Markets move faster than their rules." The gallery erupted, and Musk's face tightened, his eyes darting to Bennett. Vargas pressed his advantage. "This is not a visionary, this is a man who believes he's untouchable." Roberts' nod was subtle, but it signaled trouble for Musk. Bennett, undeterred, called Musk to the stand for a final testimony. "Tell the court why you fight this," she urged. Musk stood, his voice steady but raw. "I'm not here to dodge responsibility," he said, facing Roberts. "I'm here because the system punishes those who dare to think big. My tweets aren't perfect, but they're not crimes. They're my voice, and silencing me silences progress." The gallery split, cheers clashing with boos. Roberts, unmoved, leaned in. "Progress, Mr. Musk, cannot trample the vulnerable. Why should this court trust you?" Musk met his gaze. "Because I've never stopped building, even under fire. Judge me by what I create, not what you fear I'll destroy." The room hung on his words, a moment of raw conviction. The justices deliberated, and the tension was suffocating. Hours later, Roberts delivered the ruling. "Mr. Musk, your contributions are undeniable, but your recklessness is not excused," he said, his voice resolute. The SEC's regulations stand, and you are fined $50 million for market manipulation. However, your jurisdictional challenge has merit. We urge Congress to revisit global market oversight. The gavel fell, and the room exploded. Musk's supporters roared, seeing the fine as a slap on the wrist, while critics decried the court's leniency. Roberts' partial concession sparked debate, his call for legislative reform a nod to Musk's broader point. Musk left the courtroom, his head high, the fine a footnote to his empire. Online, the verdict trended, igniting fierce arguments about wealth's sway over justice. Pundits dissected Roberts' ruling, some praising its balance, others slamming it as a cop-out. The case exposed cracks in the legal system, prompting calls for laws to address billionaires' outsized influence. Musk, undaunted, tweeted, "Paid the fine, still building the future." The post went viral, a final jab at his foes. Roberts, in his chambers, watched the news, his face unreadable. The law had held, but the war over power was far from over, its echoes shaping a new era of scrutiny and reform.